All right, so ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to lesson number 5 of Think Different. The goal of this series is to start thinking in a different way. Last week we spoke about personal change and what that means and what that looks like from a Jewish mystical perspective, from a Kabbalistic perspective, from a Hasidic perspective. Today we look at 3 themes. We look at the theme of love, the theme of respect, and the theme of unity. 3 very important themes, 3 major ideas, and 3 things that Judaism definitely has a lot to talk about. So, I want to begin by, first of all, I want to let you know that I muted everybody just so that the sound is nice and clear, so that you can hear me. At any point in time, please feel free to unmute yourself, to ask a question, to make a comment, anything and everything goes. So just feel free to unmute yourself. Now, let me jump into this notion. We talk about balance in life. It's always good to live a balanced life. So the joke goes, I'm just letting you know it's a joke. The joke goes, what do you call, wait, hold on. How does it go? It's, what is a well-balanced Jew? And the answer is someone with a chip on both shoulders. Yeah, you've heard this one before. You have a chip on both shoulders, not just one shoulder. Oh, now you're a well-balanced Jew. So here's hey Denise, welcome. Great to see you. So here's an important truth. When it comes to balance, you need the right and the left. And in Kabbalah, we speak of the right and the left in very definitive terms. The right is always the modality of love and kindness and generosity and giving. And the left side is always the modality of severity, restriction, judgment, discernment, withholding. It's always a little bit more, not necessarily aggressive, but it's more stern. Let's use that word, stern or strict, versus the chesed, which is more, easygoing, free-flowing, that sort of thing. For example, 2 different types of parents. Yeah, 2 different types of parents. One parent is very much live and let live. Do your thing, have fun, whatever, I want to be your friend. Very easygoing personality. And then you have another parent who might be very different. Disciplinarian, a lot of rules, rigid, whatever. So which one is good or which one is better? They're both good. In other words, each one has an advantage that the other one doesn't have. Each one has a disadvantage. And the truth is, if you're familiar with the tree of life in Kabbalah, which is basically the depiction of the 10 sefirot, the 10 divine energies, that's depicted in 3 columns, right, left, and center, or right, left, center, depending on how your screen is showing up over here, right? So if you know that depiction, you'll know that there's always a center, which means the balance, right? So there's the right, there's the left, but then there's the center, and we try to balance the 2. So we try to have love coupled with discipline, and we try to discipline from a place of love. So, we try to strike this balance, and that is the energy that we exert in dealing with these character traits. But there's definitely a right and there's a left. So in our relationships, there's also these 2 modalities. And we started touching on it at the very end of last week's session. We spoke about the 2 modalities of serving God. You can serve God you can connect with God. Forget serving God. You can connect with God like a servant-master relationship, or like a child-parent relationship. What's the difference? Here we go. So a servant-master relationship is one that's primarily based on obedience, right? So it's, you tell me what to do, I'm going to do it. Doesn't matter how I feel about it. That's irrelevant. I know that this is my task. By the way, there's different ways in which the servant feels about the service that they're doing. So you might have someone who does not want at all to be there and is being forced harshly by threats or whatever to be there. That's one type of servant. That's certainly not a healthy servant. And then you have another situation where somebody just feels obedient to a cause, some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? They're given over. That's not the right word. They are dedicated to a certain cause, and they feel like, this is my obligation. This is important. I like it. I don't like it. It doesn't matter. This is what I need to do. But you're feeling it, you're feeling it as an obligation and not as something that you're loving every single second of it. Yeah? Raise your hand if there's anything in your life that you would consider to be something that you do out of an obligation to do it. Yeah? Anything in your life that you do because of an obligation? Of course. Some people would say they go to work every day because of an obligation. Right? Would I rather not go to work? Sure. I go to work. Why? I'm obligated to. Why am I obligated to? A person might say, well, I need the money, or this, that, or the other. Who knows? But it's possible that we can be doing something, not only possible, we all do things that the primary reason why we do it is because it's out of obligation. Doesn't mean that you can't find meaning and purpose otherwise, but the primary reason why we're doing it might be because of obligation. Getting back to my work example, I don't want to pick on work. Hopefully we have a good relationship with work, but ask somebody, if you won the lottery, would you go back to your job? And you'll find out why they're working, right? If you won the lottery, by the way, don't win the, okay, I'm not sure if I should say this or not. People who win the lottery, it usually, statistics show, it doesn't end well. I always say, when I hear that, I always say, you know what? Bring it on. Let's play the odds. Sounds like a Vegas statement, right? Let's play the odds here, and a little shout out, and we'll make it work. But it is what it is. Look, there are things that we do because of obligation. Is that bad? It's not bad. It's reality. We have obligations. This is real life, right? But then there are things that we do because we love it. We're totally on board. We love it. We can't get enough of it. Yeah, you're enthusiastic about doing it. So I'll ask you a question. Which is better? Which is better? To do something because you love it, or to do something because you're obligated to do it? Unmute yourself. This is a dialogue. Unmute yourself and chime in with the answer. Huh?
Love it.
Love it.
Love it.
Love it. Who agrees that we should that it's better to do something because you love it? Who agrees with that? Can anybody tell me an advantage of doing something not from love but from obligation? What's an advantage of
Yes. I can't. This is Linda. I may not feel the love, so I don't want to do it anymore. But if I'm obligated, I do it.
Good.
I mean,
good.
I may not feel love for somebody in a moment, but I'm going to act loving to my child even if I don't feel it.
Excellent. Excellent. In other words, having that sense of obligation helps make it a little bit less susceptible to the natural ups and downs and ebbs and flows in our emotional state. So if I'm only doing it because I'm so excited, what happens if I wake up the next morning and not so excited? So then therefore what? I throw the whole thing, whatever it is, I get rid of the whole thing. Hence therein, or in that scenario, the notion of obligation is helpful. What else? What else is advantage of doing something because you love it or because you're obligated? Who else has something? Alex, did you? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, people that take on obligations sometimes feel they're of service either to their community or their country or their religious group, and they may or may not have love for their activity, but it is an obligation, and they feel good about taking on the obligation because Excellent. They know they're serving.
Beautiful. Very, very well said. Very well said. There's a sense of pride. There's a sense of commitment, dedication that comes with taking on an obligation. Not because you love it, but because you're committed to it. People take on commitments, and that itself is rewarding in its own way. Okay, well, let's get one more insight into let's phrase it as the advantage of an obligation, doing something out of obligation versus because you love it. One more idea. Anybody have anything else to add? Steve, go ahead.
So it's very easy to do something that you're very positive about, that you want to do,
but sometimes you have to do something and you think, what is the right thing? What would a mensch do?
Good.
And then you go ahead and hopefully do what the mensch would do.
Love it. Excellent. Very well said as well. Excellent. So here's how, and I agree with all of the points. All of the points were very well said. By the way, I agree with also the notion that love, it's great to do something, because you love it and you're passionate about it. That's also awesome. That's why I started this class with the joke about the well-balanced Jew having a chip on both shoulders, but I don't mean the chip. It's having these two modalities. It's doing things that you love, but also doing things that you might not love, but you're committed to doing them. There's a value and there's an advantage and a quality in both, and each one necessarily has something that the other one doesn't have. So Marina's writing in the chat box, obligations to do mitzvot, which is exactly where we're headed, because when it comes to doing a mitzvah, even when we don't feel like it, excellent. When it comes to doing a mitzvah, here's the reality. You can do it because you're excited about it, or you can do it because you feel committed to doing it. What's the difference? The difference is like this. When you're excited about doing it, you're passionate, you're loving it, so you're fully invested, and you're heightened, your whole being is, you're excited, enthusiastic. You may be doing it with more passion, with more, you may be looking for better ways to do it because you're excited. You're not just, fulfilling an obligation. You're really into it. Certainly that's an amazing way to do a mitzvah. But, as we mentioned with regards to human relationships, what happens if the next morning I wake up and I'm not so keen on a mitzvah? I'm not so excited to pray today. Are we still going to do it? Right? Not so excited to wrap tefillin, to light Shabbat candles, etc., etc., etc. Am I still going to do it, or am I going to just kind of let it go because for some reason my emotions aren't so enthusiastic? There's an advantage in the commitment, because the commitment sees us through it. The commitment is something, that's what Linda said. As Alex said, the commitment is something that we can feel proud of. I wasn't so excited, but I did it anyway. And that gives me a sense of accomplishment, that I was able to fight through it and do it even if I'm not feeling on top of my game. I'm still able to do it, still able to push through. It's kind of like exercise. Think about it in the context of exercise for a second, right? So exercise, I think we all know, right? Exercise is always healthy. In whatever, however much, however little, exercise is a healthy thing. It's good to move. It's hard, by the way, it's harder to move during quarantine, pandemic, shelter at home situation. It's hard because, if you're staying in a house, kind of always, it gets, you have to be creative as to how you're going to move around. So, but here's the thing. People, it's a workout. If you're working out, let's say you're walking or you're jogging or you're running or you're bicycling or you're spinning or you're pelotoning, whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter, right? Whatever you're doing, if you're exerting yourself, so sometimes you'll be very excited. Oh, I can't wait to exert myself. Sometimes you'll be like, I'm a little bit tired. I don't want to exert myself. So here's the question. Are you going to do it anyway? Are you committed to it? And when you do it, even when you weren't so excited about it, but you were committed to it, so you did it, like Alex said, it actually feels good. Because you know that you're not stuck in yourself. You know that you're not stuck in your mood. You know that you can push and accomplish, and you achieved a goal. Not only you're achieving results, even if you weren't feeling top of your game. I'm thinking about baseball now. I don't know why. Baseball just popped in my head. You're watching a baseball game, and the announcer's like, you can tell Glavine, just go old time Atlanta Brave dude, right? Glavine doesn't have his best stuff today, but he's fighting through it. You ever hear that expression? Maybe if you follow baseball. The pitcher doesn't have their best stuff, but they're still, they're still powering through the innings and getting the outs. That's what it is. Sometimes you're on top of your game, you're feeling the love, you're excited and enthused. Sometimes you're leaning on commitment. Nothing wrong with that. It's actually a good thing. You know why? So it's a good thing also because what it tells us is that as we are maybe in a state of resistance, we're still bending toward where it is that we need to go. You see, if you want to go that direction, there's no tension, there's no battle. It's nice that you went there and you're excited about going there, but you're not really, there's no energy. There's energy. But a certain energy is missing. There's a certain energy that is produced when, despite, how excited or not excited you are, there's something about going through with it that's magical, and that unleashes a certain powerful energy. So all of this I'm sharing with you very necessarily, because there are two modalities of divine service: Eved and Ben. Not B-E-N. Well, not like Chaz and Ben, for those that know Chaz. Not Ben as in the name, but Ben as in son, and Eved as in servant. There's the servant modality where a person is doing a mitzvah because that's their commitment. And then there's the Ben, the child modality, in which a person is doing the mitzvah because their parent wants them and they love their parents, so they love doing it. Two different modalities. Eved and Ben. So which one is better? You know the answer now, right? Which one is better? They both have advantages. Not one is not better than the other. They're both important, and human beings need both in a relationship. I always like to bring things back to human examples. Number one, because that's what we relate to. Number two, because hey, maybe it can help also. I mean, maybe it can help us not only with vis-a-vis God, but also vis-a-vis each other. So we're all in relationships in various forms, right? And it's good to have in those relationships, it's good to express our love and our desire to be there in that moment doing that thing. And there are times in a relationship where it's very healthy to exercise our commitment. I'm not so excited, but you know what? I'm committed. That's it. A new mother waking up at 4 a.m. to feed her child. I've been a dad. I mean, I'm still a dad, right? I'm a dad. I've been a dad to newborn babies. But I've never been a mom to, I know it's probably shocking, I've never been a mom to a newborn baby. Spoiler alert, right? I've never been I've been around a mom to a newborn baby, but I haven't been in that role. So, I would have to really bring in Leah and consult with her to get her take on it. I don't know. I guess I'll phrase it as a question. When a mom is waking up 4 a.m. to feed her child, and then again maybe at 5 a.m., and then before at 3 a.m., right? So, let's just say, is that love? Is it commitment? Is it both? What are you feeling in the moment? Is it possible that you might be feeling the commitment piece at some point? At any point? And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's natural, and so there might be the love, maybe all the time, but maybe there's also a sense of, doesn't matter what I want, I'd rather be sleeping, but who cares? I'm committed. This is my child. I'm feeding my child. Okay, so here's the point. The point is that both modalities are important. So in the last few weeks, we've been expressing the value of relating to God from a place of yira. Yira in Hebrew is translated as fear or respect or awe. But however you translate it, in general, it evokes the sense of service from a place of commitment. And then you can serve God from a place of ahava, which is love. Yira and ahava are opposites. Yira is fear, awe, respect, and ahava is love, enthusiasm, love. So you can serve God from a place of commitment, yira, or from a place of love. I want to share with you, we're going to start off in the Talmud. Before we get to Tanya, we're going to start off in the classic pages of the Talmud. I'm about to share my screen with you. It should, how come I'm not seeing it? Hold on. Give me a second here. Is it full screen? Let me get my screen going. Okay, let's see if this works now. Can you guys see this? Did that work? Yeah? Okay, great. Okay, do you guys see the text that says Sepharia up at top? Does it say Sepharia? Barachot 28b, yes?
Yeah.
Good. Awesome. Then we are quite literally on the same page, which is very good for right now. We're ahead of the game. Okay, let's jump right in. This is the Talmud, the first volume of the Talmud. Is Tractate Brachot. Brachot, you may know, means blessings. It talks about prayers and blessings, thanking God for various things. Okay, but of course in the Talmud, if you've ever studied the Talmud, you know that the Talmud quickly branches out into many sorts of discussions. So here we have a story. All right, here we go. A similar story. Don't worry about the first story. A story is told about Rabbi Eliezer's mentor, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. I love how they do the H with the little dot at the bottom to make the ch sound. Whatever works, right? CH, H with the dot, who knows? But here's the story. When Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai fell ill, his students entered to visit him. This was on his deathbed, by the way. Fell ill before he passed away. When he saw them, he began to cry. His students said to him, "Lamp of Israel, the right pillar, the mighty hammer," not the Hebrew hammer, that was somebody else. The mighty hammer, the man whose life's work is the foundation of the future of the Jewish people. For what reason are you crying? With a life as complete as yours, what is upsetting you? He said to them, "I cry in fear of heavenly judgment, as the judgment of the heavenly court is unlike the judgment of man. See, if they were leading me before a flesh and blood king whose life is temporal, who's here today and dead in the grave tomorrow, if he's angry with me, his anger is not eternal, and consequently his punishment is not eternal. If he incarcerates me, his incarceration is not an eternal incarceration, as I might maintain my hope that I would ultimately be freed. If he kills me, his killing is not for eternity, as there is life after death, after any death that he might decree. Moreover, I am able to appease him with words, and even, bribe him with money." I love that. "And even so, standing before a judge of flesh and blood, a human being born of human parents wearing a physical robe." I'm paraphrasing that. "Even so I would cry when standing before royal judgment." Rabbi Yochanan continues, "Now that they are leading me before the supreme King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He, who lives and endures forever and all time. If He's angry with me, His anger is eternal. If He incarcerates me, His incarceration is an eternal incarceration. And if He kills me, He is killing me for eternity. I am unable to appease Him with words and bribe Him with money. Moreover, but I have two paths before me, one of the Garden of Eden and the other of Gehenna, which is purgatory. And I do not know on which path they are leading me. So will I not cry?" That's quite the students moved off from that question and they began saying something else. His students said to him, "Our teacher, bless us." He said to them, "May it be His will that the fear of heaven shall be upon you like the fear of flesh and blood." His students were puzzled. I mean, you have to understand, after he gave this massive answer, this very large response to the previous query about why he was crying, explaining how God is so much more powerful, greater, totally different league than a human judge or a human, I'm sorry, not judge, I said judge before, king, before a human king. God is so much greater and more powerful than a human being. And here he says the blessing is that the fear of heaven should be like the fear of flesh and blood. His students were puzzled and said, that's it? To that point and not beyond, we shouldn't fear God more than people? We should equate God with people? Shouldn't one fear God more? Back inside, he said to them, Halavai, if only if only a person would achieve that level of fear of God as one fears a human being. Know that when one commits a transgression, he says to himself, I hope that no man will see me. If one is as concerned about avoiding shame before God as he is before man, he will never sin. This is how we ended off last week's session. There's so many things that people do. Safe conversation. This is a safe space. People do, not us, but people do that they would never do in front of other people. So why do we do it? Because no one's around. Wait a second. Spoiler alert. What about Hashem? What about God? That's what Rabbi Yochanan was telling his students. He's saying, fear God like you fear people. Or respect God as you respect people. Be embarrassed to do before God what you would be embarrassed to do before people. Notice all of this entire angle is one of service, not one of child. It's one of commitment or obligation as opposed to one of love. He didn't bless them by saying, may you love doing every mitzvah that you ever encounter and do it with enthusiasm. That was not his blessing. His blessing to his students on his deathbed was, be committed to God. Don't do unto God what you would not do unto a human being, a fellow human being. Don't do it. That's what we call commitment. That's another form of what the category of commitment is. That's not the love modality. That's not saying, love God, be so excited about doing a mitzvah that you would never dream to do anything else. That's not what he said. He said, be afraid to go against what God wants or to violate what God wants in front of him, like you're afraid to hurt someone else in front of them or do something unbecoming. It's about commitment. There are many different meditations that one can think about to get themselves psyched up or mentally ready, mentally present for the notion of commitment. Think about how important the task is. Think about how important the person giving you the task is. Think about how you couldn't look that person in the face if you didn't fulfill that commitment. Think about the shame that you would have to know that you fell short. You can have a million different shades of meditation, but commitment is commitment. And commitment is not the same thing as love. So now I'm going to share with you, tell me if this works. Can you guys see Tanya now? Did Tanya show up? Great. Great. The technology is working. So now we're going to jump back into Tanya. Pick it up from where we left off last week and introduce the love child. I was about to say the love child modality, but that sounds wrong. The love / child modality as opposed to the servant commitment modality. We're going to introduce the second and explain how these two are balancing each other. And then we'll have love, respect, commitment, and we'll talk about unity. That's going to be the third element here of our conversation. So let's jump right over here in. Okay, here we go. Let's pick it up right here. Such fear. Wait. Yeah, this is it. This is where we're up to. Excellent. Perfect. So on the heels of the story, first of all, hold on. Are we all good here? Yes? Make sense so far? Let me scroll through. Yes? Yes. Thumbs up? Okay, perfect. Yes. Good. Thank God. Excellent. Okay, let's jump right in. On the heels of the story of Rabbi Yochanan, look what he says. Such fear, however, is termed yira tata in Kabbalistic language. because tata is an Aramaic word. Zohar was written in Kabbalah. Oh, it was written, not in Kabbalah, was written in Aramaic. Yira tata is lower level fear. And it's also synonymous with, so again, that phrase yira tata, and it's synonymous with yirat chet, which means fear of sin. Which, according to Pirkei Avot 3.9, little hovering source, footnote, which is deemed to precede wisdom. It says, yira, fear, precedes wisdom. I.e., continuing inside, it is only a lower level of fear, a fear of transgressing rather than a fear of God himself. Let me explain. There are different levels of fear. And I know fear is a loaded term, so feel free to replace it with any of the terms that we've been using. But there are many different types of fear, many different levels of fear. One is a fear of getting caught, right? Let's go on a very basic level. That's like what Rabbi Yochanan said. At least be afraid to get caught by God. Like you would not want to do something and get caught by another human being, so don't do it because God's going to catch you. Or God's watching, right? So there's a sense of getting caught. Then there's a fear of punishment. Like, oh man, if I do this, there's going to be a consequence. I don't like that. So that's the next level of fear. Then you have the fear of the sin itself, which means that you are apprehensive to do something that is going to disappoint or disrupt your relationship with the other. Right? You know that if you do this, it's not about getting caught, it's not about getting punished, but it's about what does this mean for the relationship? Right? It's like it's not healthy. It's kind of like turning one's back on the other. And then you have a notion that's not from the negative but the positive, which is respect. That you're not even dreaming of doing it because you respect that person too much or the other too much. So what I'm trying to bring out is there are many different levels of what we call yira, fear or respect, and it's a multifaceted experience. His point is that this this message of Rabbi Yochanan on his deathbed, your fear of God should be like the fear of a mortal human being, right? That don't do unto God what you would not do unto others, essentially, right? That's a lower level. That's not like serve God, commit to God out of reverence and awe and wonder and that sort of thing. That's not that. That's kind of like, aren't you embarrassed to do that in front of God? That's a little bit of a lower level catalyst. But it works. Theoretically, it could work, right? Look, here's the deal. I'm not saying maybe you come in and maybe you take your jacket and you toss it. And maybe you head straight to the fridge and maybe you grab something and drink it. Maybe you grab something and eat it. But if someone else is in the house, you're going to hang up your coat, you're going to, do something else first, you're going to take out the food, put it in a plate and eat it. I'm not saying right, wrong, or other. I'm just saying that we act differently when others are watching. So to get in our heads this notion that God is present, and therefore I should be a bit more refined and dignified because I'm in the King of Kings' presence, it's not a bad thing. That's a pretty amazing thing. It's a pretty amazing meditation. And it's a pretty powerful place to be in. Is it the highest level? No. He says it's called yirat tata, yirat chet. It's like a lower level of commitment, where I'm committed, because God's watching. I don't want to do something because God's watching. That's a lower level. There's higher levels of commitment. Not love yet, but commitment, there are higher levels. But it's also important. Let's continue. We're skipping all the commentaries in the middle. It's not commentary, it's explanation, but we're going to stick with the kind of the original translation. While the higher fear, the higher level of fear is shame-faced fear, which, i.e., is the state of being abashed and overawed in God's presence. It's really this one. Shame-faced fear has the translation kind of gives us a bit of a misconception what it is. It's more of this. It's more of overawed in God's presence, where I'm so overawed. Like I walked in and there was God. It's like, oh my God, you're here, right? It's like, wow, this is amazing. Like I'm blown away. Obviously, I'm going to act and behave in a certain way with a certain amount of dignity, but it's not like I'm afraid of getting caught with something or doing something. It's more of an awe and a deeper sense of respect. As he continues to say, the is yira, v'is yira. I love that line in the Hebrew or the Aramaic. Is yira, v'is yira, which means there is fear and there is fear, which means there are two kinds of fear. The way it's translated here, there's fear and then there's fear and then there's fear, or there's yira and then there's yira. Two types of fear. I know we're using the word fear a lot, and I avoided that. I was afraid to use that the first few sessions, but I think by now you know what we mean by fear. Fear shouldn't be that trigger word of like, oh, super negative. That sounds like super dysfunctional. Fear means what we're talking about. It means respect. It means awe. It means dignity. It means not embarrassing yourself or the other. Okay, so we're getting it. But the point is, there's two levels. There's lower level yira and there's higher level yira. The bottom line is, let's continue inside. The bottom line is that you need some sort of yira, though, in order to serve God. Without any fear at all, however, like either higher or even lower, if you don't even have the lower level of fear, it i.e. one's fulfillment of Torah mitzvot, does not soar on high. Listen to this. This is super important. This is like critical ideas here. He says, if you are doing a mitzvah without any sense of yira at all, then the mitzvah does not soar on high to the supernal sphirot through love alone. This is huge. If you're just doing a mitzvah because you love it, you did the mitzvah, but it doesn't parcha le'ela. It doesn't parcha le'ela. It doesn't fly above. Just as a bird cannot fly with one wing. A one-winged bird cannot fly. A one-dimensional person's mitzvah will not fly, will not soar above. If you're only doing the mitzvah leaning on the right side to the place of love, you're not a well-balanced Jew. You're leaning one side. It's one-winged mitzvah, and it's not going to soar. That's why I took the time this evening. We took several minutes to explore the concept of love versus commitment. And I took the time to point out, and we discussed the advantages of both. But here we get to, I think, an even more important point. That you need both simultaneously in order for that action to truly soar, to truly be impactful. Every action that we do that is positive should be filled with a dual sense of love and commitment simultaneously. That is at least the ideal that we should strive to. So let me give you an example. Tomorrow night is Shabbat. I know the weeks are going fast. My kids ask me, so what day is it today? I'm like, Wednesday. That was yesterday, by the way. I didn't throw them off the trail. That was yesterday. So on Wednesday, like, Wednesday already? And then today, we did the same thing. Thursday, wow, tomorrow is Shabbos? Yeah. So tomorrow night's Shabbat, right? Shabbat begins here in Atlanta somewhere in the 8s. 8:20-ish, I'm thinking, for the start. I don't have the calendar open in front of me. Okay, that's candlelighting time. So you're lighting Shabbat candles. No, I'm jumping too fast. Comes along, let's say 8:15. And suddenly you realize, oh, Shabbat candles. I gotta light Shabbat candles. Why are you lighting Shabbat candles? Why? That thought hits your head. Oh, I need to light Shabbat candles. Why? Commitment or love? What's gonna make it soar? Both. Give that bird, mitzvah, not bar mitzvah, or bat mitzvah, bird mitzvah. Give that bird mitzvah 2 wings. 2 viable, functioning wings. Give it the wing of love and the wing of... I'm getting too animated. I'm knocking stuff off my desk. Right? We need the wing. Don't worry. It's fine. We need the wing of love, and we need the wing of awe, fear, respect. The other side, commitment. That's what makes a mitzvah soar. Do it because you love it. Do it because you're committed to doing it for all those different levels of reasons that we spoke of before. Either you're embarrassed not to, or you're afraid not to, or those are the negative ones, right? Or the higher ones of commitment and respect. But do it for both. That's what makes it soar. Let's continue. For fear and love, again, yira and ava, are the two wings, as stated in Tikkunei Zohar. Kabbalah says, what are the two wings? In the Aramaic, Dechilu v'rechimu. Right there, in the blue highlighted Hebrew text. The Dechilu v'rechimu hein trein gadfin kameshakaso betikunim. Dechilu is fear. Rechimu is love. Those are the train gadfin, the two wings of every mitzvah, of our spiritual service. So, should you love what you do, or should you be committed to what you do? Of course, the answer is both. And if you can pull out both at the same time, that's amazing. Let's continue. I don't know how we got Italian and pasta, but that happened. Okay, let's continue. Look at this. Now he goes the other way. Similarly, fear alone is but one wing. If you're just committed, it's also not enough. And one service cannot ascend with it on high, even though it is termed the service of a servant. Even though commitment means that you're committed like a servant and you're fulfilling the mitzvah. Ivdu as Hashem, you're serving God like a servant from commitment. But if you don't feel the love, then it's not going to fly. I mean, in that way, right? It's not going to soar on high. It needs two wings to soar. For there also, and now we get into the language that I mentioned before, for there must also be the service characteristic of a son, service motivated by love. You have to also have the son. It's not enough to have the servant modality, but also the son. Son means child. In order to awaken, not in order, no, by awakening. How do we get the service of a son? Service motivated by love? By, not in order to, by awakening at least the natural love for God that is hidden in his heart, so that he should at least become conscious of it in his mind, to recall his love of the one God in his thought and in his desire to cleave to him. So this recollection of his hidden love for God should arouse within him a desire to cleave to God. What is this hidden love of God that we're speaking of? What does that mean? So the premise in Tanya is that every human being has a soul. And by virtue of the soul, so we have a natural connection with our source, with God. Right? It's like DNA. Spiritual DNA. The soul is a piece of God, right? So to speak. The soul comes from God. So the soul naturally has a love. Like a child to a parent, there's a natural love. Now, when he calls it natural love, it doesn't mean that we always feel it. It's natural, but it could be hidden, because we might not be thinking about it, we might not be exercising it, or inflaming it, bringing it out into the open. It might be there in a hidden space, but it's there. The premise is it's always there. If you have a soul, if you're alive, you have a soul. If you have a soul, you have a love for God, whether you're aware of it or not. So what he's saying is, if you're feeling like your mitzvah performance is more leaning more toward the category, the left side of commitment, you're feeling more of the obligation, it feels more like a burden, don't despair. You have a natural love inside your heart, inside your soul. All you need to do is bring it out into the open. But it's there. It's not like you have to create something new. You have a natural love for God, and therefore natural love to do what God wants. To love the mitzvah, not just to be committed to do it, but to love it also. But we got to do the work to bring it out, and that happens usually through meditation. The way Tanya works, and you should know this is what Chabad, literally the meaning of Chabad, which is Chachma Bina Dat, which is the three intellectual faculties of the mind. The whole premise of Chabad is we use this, the gift of our mind, to then generate the emotions that we need to behave in a proper way. So in this context, again, speaking very, very directly to our topic tonight, we explained that there's a value in commitment. Now we're explaining there's a value in love. In other words, in doing a mitzvah from a place of love. And if you're concerned, well, how am I going to get the love? You have it inside of you. But you got to use your head, which is what he says right here. Literally the next line. How do we do this? To recall his love of the one God in his thought. So you got to think about it. Meditate on the stuff that makes you remember where you come from, makes you appreciate the soul that God has given you, the life that God has given you. When you meditate, listen, I'll give you a quick meditation, not like close your eyes meditation, but a quick thought process. Think about yourself, think about your life, think about how grateful you are to be alive, or think about how happy you are to be alive as opposed to the opposite. Think about where your life is coming from. Think about your gratitude to God for giving you life. Think about how everything is coming from God, and then you'll maybe come to a place of loving the source of your life, because you love life, you love your life, you love the source of your life. It's an easy equation to go through. It's an easy thought process, relatively easy, if we take the time to think about it. If we don't think about it, then we might just forget, or might just lay dormant in our heart and soul. So the point is to recall it consciously, and thought means consciously think about our inherent love of God and the desire to cleave to God. I want to be connected with my source of life. I do not want to unplug from my source of life. That would not be good. Right? This should be his intent when occupying himself with the Torah or with the particular commandment he's about to perform. So anytime you study Torah, which by the way we're doing now, so anytime we study Torah or anytime we do a mitzvah, there should be this meditation. The love meditation, namely that his divine soul as well as his vivifying soul, so not only the godly soul, but also the basic, animating, the movement soul, not only the godly soul, right, but the basic life soul, together with all their garments, thought, speech, and action, all of them shall cleave to him, as has been explained above. So, in other words, a person should meditate. Look, this is God, this is my source, this is life itself. I don't want to unplug, I want to connect. Let me do a mitzvah. When I do a mitzvah, I'm connecting my whole being with God. That's great. Is that commitment? No, it's love, it's excitement. I'm looking forward to it. It's great. Another opportunity to plug in. It's fantastic. I love life, I love this world, I love my source of life, I love God. Let's plug in. So he's giving you a little bit of thought process to think about to get that other side going. Again, for the person that finds themselves totally in love with Torah and mitzvot, they may need to work on the commitment part of it. To feel like it's not just love, it's also commitment. But for the person that's leaning toward the commitment side, and now we add the third point, which is the unity point. Yet, in fact, the sages of blessed memory have said that a man should never separate himself from the community. Al yotze adam atzmo min haklal. Do not leave the community. What does that mean in our context? Before we read it inside, I'll tell it to you outside. He's about to say that the third meditation, when you do a mitzvah, is that this should unite me with others, with the community. That this action that I take should bring blessing to all of us as one. So there's three meditations. A meditation of commitment. I am committed. This is important. God wants it. I respect God, etc. I'm doing it. That's one wing. Second wing is I love God. I want to connect with God because I love God. I value God. I appreciate God. I want to do the mitzvah. Those are our wings. It's flying. There's a third point. The third point is meditate on the benefit that this has on all of us, to connect all of us and bring blessing to all of us. Again, he's speaking to the Jewish community, so he uses that terminology, but it applies across the board. Take a look. Therefore, he should intend to unite and attach to him, to God, blessed be he, the source of his divine soul, and in addition, God is not just my source, but the source of everyone else, the source of the souls of all Israel. This source being this quote-unquote spirit of his mouth, called by the name Shekhinah. If you want to label it, we're talking about now the Shekhinah, the divine presence. Why is it called the Shekhinah? Because it dwells. Shochenet, Shochen means dwell. Shochenet is the feminine term of dwelling. Dwelling means immanence as opposed to transcendence. It's inside. It's being drawn within. And it's clothing itself in all the worlds, animating them and giving them existence. And it is the Shekhinah. which imbues him with the power of speech to utter the words of Torah, or with the power of action to perform the particular commandment at hand. I need to explain what's going on. The Shekhinah is the way that Kabbalah speaks of God's power that's going inside of us and is enlivening us in a very personal way. There's like God's infinite power and God's transcendent power that stands kind of beyond everything. Okay, that's something else. But then there's God's Shekhinah. The Shekhinah is the energy that goes inside the being, inside the person, inside the soul. And he says the meditation here is that when I do the mitzvah, I'm connecting with that source of God that's inside of me. And that same source of God that's inside of me is inside of everyone else. That Shekhinah is not only in me, it's inside others. I want to give you a quick example. The Talmud says, the one time a heretic asked a rabbi, I forget which one, so tell me, is God inside me? Yeah. Is God inside you? Yeah. So then tell me, how many gods do you have? Aha, gotcha. If God's in me and God's in you, multiple gods. So he says, what kind of question is that? Is the sun in your? Does the sun shine in your house through your window? Yeah. Does it shine in my window? Yeah. How many suns are there? Aha. You see that? Good answer. There's one sun, S-O-N. No, that was awkward. S-U-N, right? One sun, but it shines in different homes, and that's not a contradiction to its oneness. The same thing is true. There's one God. The Shekhinah is the force that goes inside of everything individually. So a person's meditation is when they're in love, when they're meditating on the connection, the love with God, that second meditation, it leads automatically almost to the third point, which is, wait 1 second. When I do a mitzvah, I'm connecting with the divine force inside of me, but that divine force inside of me is essentially the same force that's inside of the other guy and the other person, and he and she and my brothers and sisters, I mean like the larger community brothers and sisters, and all of us. So when I do this mitzvah, I'm meditating not only on my own love and my own commitment, but I'm also meditating on the fact that by doing this mitzvah, I am thinking about everybody and trying to bring blessing into the Shekhinah itself that will then filter down into everybody. Let's take a quick look. I just want to finish this idea and then we're going to close it out for tonight. This union of the source of Jewish souls with God is attained through drawing forth the light of the blessed Ein Sof here below by being occupied in Torah and commandments. We're in it. The light of the Ein Sof is clothed. In other words, how do we bring more energy into the Shekhinah, into every one of us, not just ourselves, but in everyone? It's by Torah and mitzvah. When we connect, when we access these actions, it's not just commitment, it's not just love, but it's actually drawing blessing upon us and upon all. And here we go. He should be intent. This should be a kavanah. This should be an intentional piece of the mitzvah. He should be intent on drawing his blessed light, God's blessed light, over the source of his soul and of the souls of all Israel. Again, we're using this because that's the community, so as to unite them with him. The point is, a mitzvah is not just an individual effort, but it's a collective blessing. The meaning of this union, in case you want to know more of that, will be discussed at length later on. And here we finish off today. Here we go, the last line. This, then, is the meaning of the words recited before performing various commandments. Quote, L'shem, Yichud, Kudsha, Berichu, Ushchinte, B'Shem, Kol Yisrael. Which translates as, we do this mitzvah, why? For the sake of the union of Kudsha B'Richu, which is the transcendent energy of God, with his Shekhinah, with God's own immanent energy, in the name of all Israel, i.e. filtering down to all the souls. So again, every mitzvah that we do is triggering, in a good way, is plugging into the source, the transcendent source, which is Kudsha B'Richu, which is God's transcendent reality, which then unifies, connects with, that's something else, connects with God's Shekhinah, which is the immanent divine energy, the energy that flows into everything, not that stands above, but goes within, and that energy goes to everyone. And herein we have the third piece of the mitzvah. The mitzvah is about commitment. The mitzvah is about love. And finally, the mitzvah is about connection. The mitzvah is about union. The mitzvah is about togetherness. It's about bringing blessings. My mitzvah brings more energy to you, and your mitzvah brings more energy to me. That is the collective power that we have to benefit each other. You know, there's a line that people use now, like right now, in this pandemic, we're all in this together. And honestly, most times that I hear this, I'm not really sure what that means. I'm not sure what that means. I mean, I think I know what that means, but I'm not 100% sure what, any one or company's specific intent is, or if it's just a slogan that's being trotted around. But I will say this. I will say that when it comes to a mitzvah, when it comes to Torah, we're all in this together, and that and only in a positive way. When we do a mitzvah, we are interfacing. We're connecting with the source, and that source is connected with the transcendent source, and the transcendent source is connected with our immediate source, and our immediate source is the same source as the other guy's source, and we're drawing the energy from the transcendent into the immanent, extra infusion of divine light into all the worlds, into all people, and that's a blessing for us all. So, in the final analysis, why do we do a mitzvah? No matter what? Do we do a mitzvah because of the fringe benefits? Because it makes us all connected and it makes us all blessed a little bit more? The answer, of course, is yes, yes, yes. All the above. But for sure, the first two intentions are really important. The first two, the love and the commitment, those are the direct two wings that make a fly. The third is the natural outcome of the love. Because I love, so I'm also feeling the communal love, and therefore I'm going to have that intention as well. All right, that takes us to the end of today's session. I hope that you enjoyed. Thank you, Marina. Thank you for saying that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope you all enjoyed today's lesson and the practical meditations that you and I can walk away with the next time we encounter a mitzvah. Think about these themes. Think about yourself. Why am I doing it? Am I doing it just because I'm supposed to, or because I want to? And if you find yourself leaning one way, balance it. Make sure that think about, like, I was thinking about flying, but since when did you fly like this? Think about swimming or anything. Rowing, right? Row with one paddle. You're going to go in circles, right? If you really want to move somewhere forward, the joke about the Yeshiva University rowing team, right? They were once wondering why they weren't successful against other universities, and so other programs. So the Yeshiva University in New York. So the YU, one of the members of the team went to Harvard. Harvard has a rowing team, yes? Does Harvard have a rowing team? Probably a good one, right? Good. Yeah, so they said, so it came back and reported back to the team, said, I see what the difference is. In Harvard, they have one person giving, 9 people, I don't know how many people row on a rowing team, but I'm just going to make up a number. 9 people rowing and one person giving directions. Here we have,
The bosun. The bosun
the
gives
bosun.
the dress out.
Got it. So there you have 9 rowing and 1 directing. Here we have 9 directing and 1 rowing, so we're not getting it. That's the joke, right? Everyone's giving their opinions. It's a very Jewish thing. I think we should go here. The point is like this, though. It's good to have a balance. It's good to be a well-rounded yid, a well-rounded person, and it's good to think about others. That's the bottom line. All right, so that's it for today. Next week, same bad time, same bad channel. We're going to pick it up and explore more Tanya, think different. I hope you're enjoying it. I know I am, and I hope it raises your spirits and makes you feel more deeply connected with your heritage and your commitments. All right. Thank you. Any questions, comments? I'm still here for a little bit. Questions, comments?
Thank you, Rabbi.
Pleasure. Thank you for the thank you, Monica. Thanks for being here.
Rabbi Ari, it's
Yes.
Linda. I'd like to ask you a quick question
Sure.
or comment. About 3 pages back, so they're not numbered, so I'm sorry I can't tell you, but it's right after he talks about a higher fear is a shame-faced fear.
Yeah.
And there are 2 kinds of fear. The lower level of fear, which leads to the performance of Torah and mitzvot, and the higher level of fear, which results from the proper performance of Torah and mitzvot. I just found that really powerful, that one leads you in, and one then comes as a result. The awe comes as a result of the mitzvah. Am I reading that right?
You're reading that right. I didn't focus on that because I didn't want to make it.
There's so much other stuff. I mean, yeah.
No, and I didn't want to make it confusing, but you're absolutely right. If you notice here,
yes.
This is what you're talking about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the way it works is there's a Yira sandwich.
Okay.
No, that's what it says. It says there's it goes like this: fear, love, fear, from down from above to below. So there's the lowest level of fear, which is like you don't want to get caught, you don't want to get punished, you don't want to get in trouble, whatever. That's like low level motivation. Then you have positive motivation, lower level love. So you have lower level fear, lower level love, which is more selfish, higher level love, but then the highest level is that higher level of reverence and awe and respect, which we've said many times is a major key to a healthy relationship. Because if you just love, that's not fully it. You need that respect. Respect is even higher. Love means I love you as long as you're the same. You agree with me, right? Respect means I respect your difference, which is higher level of relating to the other. When somebody says, I love what you just said, it means they agree with it. When somebody says, I respect your opinion, it means they disagree, but they can still find respect for it, which is, again, a higher level. So what he's saying here is that there's a lower level fear, and then there's the higher level fear, and that's really much higher. And in the context of Torah and Mitzvot, the lower level of fear is the basic catalyst to be committed, even if you don't want to. The higher level fear is once you've experienced that type of connection through Torah and Mitzvot, once you experience that and get a taste of that, now you have an appreciation of who and what God is, an appreciation of the mitzvah. Now you can start really feeling like, oh wow, I mean, this is the real deal. This is amazing. Not in a love way, but in an awesome way. And that's the higher level of fear, or really awe on that level.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I have a quick question on my understanding of the shame-faced fear. This is Bethany.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the shame-faced fear, awed in God's presence, would that be like you just fall on the floor face down in awe, like that kind of feeling, like not embarrassed, but oh, how incredible?
Yeah. I like I said before, I'm not super thrilled about that translation, shame-faced fear, or even being abashed. I don't know what that actually means, but I don't. The energy is more of the overawed, just blown away, like totally, like you walk into a palace and it's majestic and it takes your breath away. Lahavdil, right? I don't want to, none of these things can touch the awe that we should have for God, right? But imagine, the Grand Canyon, and you see that and you're like, wow. Or imagine, coming face to face with beauty, or profound beauty, or God forbid, profound tragedy, where you feel like it puts things in perspective. It directly puts things in stark perspective, and you see right and wrong and good and bad and truth and falsehood, and you see it clearly.
Your heart feels gigantic.
Yeah, it's not a love. That moment is not love. It's a different energy. It's hard to translate. It's hard to put into words. That's why I think it's an imperfect. It's imperfect. In the translation and the kind of the messaging. But I hopefully there's enough enough words here where the intent the energy comes through in a way that can resonate with us. That's at least the goal. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining me. And I'll hope to see you tomorrow for Daily Power Parsha, our Torah study at 12 o'clock. Hope to see you. When else are we going to get together? Yeah, stay tuned. Many opportunities to get together. All right, Laila Tov. Take care. Have a good night. Bye all.